All right, today I've got Trip Lee on the show, and I have to admit, Trip Lee was not on my radar to interview from Praise Charts talking about worship music. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Trip and his music. We all know him as a rap artist, doing, I don't know. I'm not really into rap, but I'm definitely into worship music. But somehow Trip came across my desk and he's like, he wants to talk about something that's coming up. And I think there's a shift going on in his life. I don't know if he's leaving the past and going into a new direction, but it's definitely there is a new fire about worship, and it just goes to levels that I think you're gonna love. I've got incredible topics to talk to Trip about, and I'm sure we're gonna stir the pot a bit. It's gonna be fun. Anyways, this is Praise Charts, Ryan Dahl, Trip Lee. Let's see where this goes. Here we go. All right, Trip. It's just you and me. I think we're going to
Yeah,
stir the pot a little bit. Make people think. That's what I want to do. Make people think
love
about
it.
what they're doing, right? Isn't that
Yeah,
is that something that lights you up?
absolutely.
Yes.
Even pastoring, like I would
Yes.
sometimes want to do a series where it's like, hey, what the stuff we do on Sunday morning, the sermon, praying,
Yes.
communion. Where do we get that from, and what are we doing? I love to make
Yes.
people think about what we're doing.
Totally. And it's so easy in church and in worship is we just do because Sundays come around every Sunday and you just do the same thing you did last Sunday and then two Sundays and you just keep doing the same thing, and sometimes we just need to stop and slow down and go, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? And maybe that doesn't mean we change things, but still, it's good to do that. So I'm happy to do this together with you. I mean, truly, right now, as I'm recording, we don't even have any of your music on Praise Charts. We don't carry rap
Yeah,
music on Praise Charts. So something is shifting. Now, I was looking at your website, and I'm just going to pull it up here so we can look together. When I'm looking at your website and I see all the albums that you've done, this kind of is like a little history of Trip Lee. The last one here says the end. Now, if I'm looking at this, I'm just thinking, well, that's probably the end. Like, Trip is going to become a plumber now, or he's going to become a writer, or I don't know. He is done with music. Is that what happened? What is the end?
yes. I would like to say you definitely do not want me to be your plumber. I don't think that would help anything.
Okay.
No, I that project, the end. It was more about coming to the end of ourselves. The
Yes.
spot where we get where we have realized our strength isn't enough, our plans are not enough, and coming to God with open hands, saying, where I find God is at the end of myself. I can only trust Jesus when I see that I need to trust Jesus.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's what that project was about. Though it, of course, was a provocative title that made people like, "Oh no, are we done here?"
Yes. Yes.
Um, but I will say, I've made 8 solo Christian hip hop albums, and so this is a very different kind of project for me. So it is, at the very least, the beginning of a new season of something that I'm really passionate about,
Right.
and excited to share with people.
All right, well, let's break into it, like what this is, because it is definitely something. I've got the album up here. We can even listen to a couple of the songs at any time in this show. But the album cover, I don't have the cover, I just have the list of songs. For Your Glory, and that's the first in this new stream of something
Yes.
called Brag Worship. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about Brag Worship? Why that word? What does this mean to you?
Yeah, and so that has been a theme that's been common in my music. I've made a lot of
Mm-hmm.
songs where I've talked about bragging on God,
Mm-hmm.
making much of God. You know, Hip hop is a very boastful and in your face art form. And so
Hmm.
if there was a Olympic gold medal for bragging, rappers would get the gold medal every single
Yes.
time. Um,
Gotcha.
and they
Yeah.
will do it well and artfully and in your face. And so I thought, this is who I am culturally, but I wanna brag about Jesus. I wanna make much of him. I think about Jeremiah
Okay.
9, where He's saying, don't let the strong man boast in his might or the wise man boast in his wisdom, but in that we know God. And so I want
Yeah.
so when I decided to do this worship, this kind of new expression for me, writing these songs for Christians to sing together, I thought that's a great theme for me to carry into that, because what are we doing with one voice when we sing songs? We're making much of God. We're saying He is our and He is our strength. And so it felt like it fit the project.
So good. Well, when I look at some of the names, I mean, certainly a few of these names are very familiar. One of my favorite interviews that I've done in the past, I loved my time with Naomi Rain. So it's great. You've got Jonathan Traylor and Doe, Leah Smith. These must be people in your community. You've brought them together to be a part of this project. So just maybe describe a little bit of the vibe of these songs. If you want, I can, go to anyone. If you're like, hey, just play a little clip of this. Just want you to hear a little taste of it. You take me through. I can go to any song you want.
Sure. Well, so the songs on this, because some people are like, oh, you're doing a worship album, you're gonna rap on the verses, and then there's gonna be like
Yes.
a worship
Yeah.
sound and hook. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
that's not what we're doing. I'm
No.
trying to write songs that churches can sing together, that Christians can sing in a small group together.
Yeah.
You can sing with your
Okay.
family. These are meant to be corporate worship songs,
Uh-huh.
but sound wise, I did want to expand a little bit of what we think of as what worship music sounds like. I think if Jesus is a savior for all peoples, all nations, then there should be as many cultural expressions of worship as there are cultures. So
Yeah.
this is me saying this is my expression of corporate worship songs, and so I wanted to get some artists who were versatile enough to kind of live in more than one world. I do think I remember when I was first playing these songs for some friends. I had a friend say, "Oh, this is really good, but this isn't worship." I was like, "Oh, no. Why not?" I was like, "Oh, well, the way that drum sounds or the way this is." And,
Yeah.
one of the interesting things about looking at church music throughout history is there would be some church music from history or from different cultures that wouldn't immediately sound like worship to us. But I think, again, to your question about thinking about what it is that we're doing, if I look in scripture, and I see what God has said we're supposed to be doing when we sing songs together, I've been trying to write songs that can do that. And these artists did an amazing job of helping me make those kinds of songs.
Okay, well, pick a song. Let's pick a song right now. I just want to just get a little bit of a taste
Sure.
of this. We won't play through them all. The album is coming out, I think, in the middle of February, so nobody can
That's
really
right.
hear it yet. This is
Yeah.
hot off the
So
press.
how about
Okay.
Fortress with
All
Naomi
right,
Rain?
of course. Naomi Rain. I got it right here. Let's have a little taste of this. Here we go. Can you hear it? Is it coming out? Right on. She's so great.
I'm weakest when I'm strongest in my eyes. I'm hopeless when I rejoice in my highs. Lord, keep me low until I recognize I'm feeble till my fortress arrives. My God can't do anything. His grace is enough for me. When my strength is gone, He shows up. When I call my God, He shows up. What's death to a risen King? He conquered the enemy. When my strength is gone, He shows up. When I call my God, He shows up. Yeah. Shows up. Yeah.
All right. I mean, I could keep listening to that. That sounds amazing. It's catchy. It's got a bit of a hook, but it's singable. I mean, obviously,
Yes.
that's things that you're looking for is something that people can bite into. There's got to be some repetitive elements so that people they might not know it in verse 1, but by verse 2, they're sort of catching on. I mean, that's the nature of how worship music is, hey?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that was one of the things about going from writing just rap songs to worship songs is
Yeah.
I'm writing songs not just that I can say well, but that other people, different cultures,
Yes.
different kinds of churches can sing these songs together. And that's a really important part of it and something that I thought about a lot. So with that song, that passage where Paul talks about when I'm weak, I'm strong, and that it's when we are weak, that's when the power of God shows up. And me and Naomi wrote that together. We wrote that one together. And even as we're working on production, I think there's some things I'm like, well, why can't I have this kind of thing that feels like this in the production? If what I'm mainly interested in is this is music that is drenched in gospel truth, that is helping us to express things that God calls us to, that it's singable, that
Yes.
people can sing along.
Yes.
Let me think about production that can feel fresh, that can feel like this expression wise, but that doesn't get in the way of what we're trying to do when we worship together.
Gotcha. Okay, I want to have a little fun with this. I have prepared what I'm going to call a little bit like a firing squad, but not too threatening. It's just I got a whole bunch of quotes. I'm going to put them in front of you. We're just going to riff on them, 1 or 2 minutes each. You respond to this. Some of these are quotes or things that I've pulled out of things you've written. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you and all about this through that. So here we go. This is the first one. Hip hop is testimony. Worship is delegation. What do you think about that quote?
I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think
Yes.
one of the unique things about hip hop is I don't remember if I said this a moment ago or not, but there's a lot of words in rap songs. That's
Yes.
one of the things. Like, as
Yes.
someone who loves theology, the truth of God, I can say a lot of things, and so I can tell rich stories about my life. I can talk about theological concepts in detail. I have a lot of words to deal with. When we're talking about worship songs that people are singing together, I'm trying to write songs that are gathering people to sing together as one voice. And so I do have to approach that a little bit differently. And I think that's one of the things that I would like believers to be more excited about on Sunday mornings when we sing with other Christians. I think sometimes we can show up and just close our eyes and just have a time with just us and God alone. And that is a good thing. But there's also, this is not just you're having a quiet time in a public place. We actually are singing these songs not only to God together, but to one another. It
Right.
is a corporate thing, and that is
Yes.
essential for our souls. I remember talking to a
Yeah.
sister who was saying, I showed up Sunday morning. I've been depressed all week. It's been hard for me to get in the word. It's been hard for me to connect with God. But when I got here and we were all, the whole room, singing songs about God's goodness and how he's close to us and how he loves us, hearing the other voices is what helped me to keep believing in that truth. If you don't like to sing on Sunday morning, if you think that's something that's beneath you, or you think that's something that's kind of trite, I just want to encourage you to obey the commands of the New Testament that says,
Yes.
let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another, singing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. And if you think, oh, it's not really good for me, well, scriptures also told you to sing for the benefit of your brothers and sisters.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's part of the unique thing we get to do with corporate worshiping.
Yep. 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 That's so great. Okay, well, let's keep going. I'm loving this. So the next one I've got, worship isn't about what I feel, it's about what we confess together. I think this builds off of what you were just saying.
Yeah, I think the slight edit I would make is that worship isn't just about what I feel.
Okay. Well, I can
Because
fix it
so
right
much of
now. So how about that? There we go.
yes, yeah. So it's not like worship, because I do think it's actually important that people don't think that when we worship God, we have to ignore how we feel. Because
Yes.
when we look in the Psalms, we see a lot of the psalmists talking about life being difficult and saying, "Oh, my friends have abandoned me, and
Yeah.
I have to speak to my own soul in this darkness." I think sometimes people think if you open the Psalms, the Bible songbook, it would just be a bunch of happy stuff. But sometimes you open it and it's like, everybody hates me, all my friends left me, I'm sad. You know what I mean? And I want to say, well, in the midst of that, what we confess together speaks directly to what we feel.
Yeah.
And so I think on the opposite side, sometimes people can make worship purely just about our emotions and purely about an emotional moment. We are both being honest about how we feel, but we are confessing the truth of God that speaks to how we feel, that gives grounding to how we feel, or that challenges how we feel, or rebukes how we feel, and calls us into what God is calling us to together.
So good. So good. I'm going to build on that. The next quote I think does that. When the church sings your words, you're shaping theology, whether you mean it or not. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Amen. And I think sometimes, what I would encourage fellow pastors to do
Yeah.
is, I think sometimes pastors will think about all the things going on in the church that are shaping, that are discipling people. And then I think we can sometimes be like, well, whatever the music guy comes up with in the music, I'll just do whatever. I mean, I think one that does a disservice to worship leaders because it treats what they do as if it's not important or theological. And I think it does
Yeah.
a disservice to the people in the church because it is part of what we're shaped by. I understood when I was pastoring, no one's going to be on Thursday morning on the way to work reciting point 3 from my sermon word for word. This is not going to.
No.
What they may be reciting is
Yes.
the words of the worship song you sang right before the sermon.
Verse 3.
And so, yes, that's right. And if you want to put good truth in the hearts
Yeah.
and minds of the people that you're leading, give them great songs.
Yeah.
We want melodies to be great. We
Yeah.
want the feelings to be great, but we also want to give them good truth that they're
Yeah.
carrying along with them throughout the week.
You know what? Honestly, what you're saying right there is why I've invested my life into praise charts, because I so believe that. Like, we are just distributing this whole wealth of songs. And I know that those songs, they're going to end up in showers. They're going to be in the front seat of cars, in the back seat of cars, in closets, all the places where, all respect to pastors who preach sermons and do their very best to try to get them to deposit those sermons into places that people remember. But melodies are powerful, and it's hard to beat that. So, you worship leaders out there who are listening to this, you got to know how important your role is in the church in bringing truth to people. So I like this next one, just kind of taking a little bit of a shift and getting a little more raw in worship, because sometimes people are coming and they're not feeling all happy clappy on a Sunday morning. Yeah. So this quote here I liked: "A worship song has to survive when the room is tired." These are all quotes that are from you or extracted from things you've written. So what do you mean when you say that?
Yeah, I think there can be sometimes when if you show up on a Sunday morning to a church, sometimes we show up and our minds are all over the place. We're thinking about the stuff we didn't get done throughout the week. We're thinking about the thing that is challenging our faith in Jesus. And I want the songs that we sing to be songs that we don't have to pretend life isn't real in order to sing from a true heart. There's one song on the album called "Draw My Eyes," and I had shown up to church Sunday morning and I was struggling to focus, honestly. I was walking in, I was seeing people, I was like, oh, I forgot to call them back. I was singing about what I didn't do, what I have to do. And I'm like, wait, I'm singing. So the God of the universe said, I'll meet with my people. And I'm distracted thinking about some foolish stuff. And so I just wrote down in my notebook, "Draw My Eyes to You." And then one of the songs is called "Draw My Eyes." And it is this call like, Lord, please draw my eyes. And the chorus says, "You're great, we know this. When I don't notice, it's not your beauty, it's my eyes." When I don't notice how incredibly beautiful God is, not because he's not beautiful, it's because I'm not looking at him as I should. And so I want the kind of worship songs we sing to acknowledge the reality of our lives, that sometimes we are distracted from God, that sometimes life is so hard that we don't see him as he is. I want the songs to be rooted in real life enough that you don't like walk out of the church building and like, oh, that truth doesn't even stand up to what life is really like out here.
I feel like that is the theme of what is needed from worship leaders in this era, in particular 2025, 26 and beyond. We've kind of come through this whole season of like modern worship and ultra technology and LED walls and smoke and lights. I mean, we've had it all for now 10, 15 years. Everybody has done the show, and now people want something real, right? That's the next thing. And I don't know if that's ever going to go away. I don't think that's a fad. I think that's here to stay. But it's almost like we had to get through this era where people are like, oh, computers, lights, PowerPoint, Pro Presenter, look at this light can go all different directions. And we tried it and it's great, but it doesn't have that like lasting, there's something else I want, right? And what you're talking about leans into that.
Yes. And I think sometimes we think that the more of that stuff we have, that's what's going to make people think we're cool. But I think when the substance isn't there as well, it just makes that stuff just makes it all feel silly. It's like, what are we doing all this for? This
Yeah.
doesn't speak to the stuff I came into this room weighing on my heart, or the stuff that I'm going to face when I walk out.
Yes.
And I do think this is a season where people really want substance. Some of
Yeah.
the cultural stuff, just cultural reasons to be part of church, or just the experience that they want to feel, is that desire isn't always there with people, but people want substance. They
Yeah.
want something that is actually firm and substantive enough to sustain them.
Yep. Yeah, so much. Okay, so another word kind of contrasting with this topic of substance is
Mm-hmm.
simplicity, because sometimes for a congregation to pick up on a song, they need to
Yeah.
be able to sing it. It can't go all over the place. And so this other word, spacious songs or simple songs, give people room to believe what they're singing. So tell me a little bit about just the right amount of simplicity that allows a congregation to grab on without a song becoming like it's not saying anything, that it's just,
Sure.
it's so basic that it's like, oh, I'm tired of this. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think for me, one of the ways I try to approach it is the things that I'm writing about. I'm trying to have such a familiar relationship with that truth that I can say it in very simple ways. That can hold
Right.
a lot of weight, but that
Yeah.
doesn't have to. I don't think we want people to be singing in a way where we're like, oh wait, well, what does that mean? All right, wait, how does that word connect with that? We want it to be almost um, helping people to meditate on truth that they already know or that they're starting to interact with.
Yes.
Sometimes I want to be able to, like, give God's people words. Maybe they couldn't write it in a poetic or a kind of deep way that really gets to the heart of it. I'm like, God, what a gift if you would allow me to put words in the mouth of your people that express how they're really feeling, or that express who they're really seeing in you,
Yeah.
or that even sometimes people would say, oh wow, God is like that, and that's not how I've been thinking about him. Help me
Yeah.
to think more carefully.
Yeah.
I don't want people to have to do too much. I want it to be deep enough that it impacts your soul, but simple enough that you can
Yeah.
catch on and sing along from a pure place.
Yeah. And I often say I find this in, oh, so many things. Like even just what I do in praise charts and web development and design and things is like making something simple is actually
Mhm.
quite complex. When the
Yes.
output, like for example, our iPhones, they're so simple. We can just touch on them with our phones, and nobody got an instruction manual to figure out how to use your iPhone. You just have to know it. But that's just an example. Lots of different phones are like that. But it's
Sure.
incredibly complex to
Yes.
get to that, to write a song that is simple, but that, like, I think of songs like How Great Is Our God, or
Yes.
even Holy Forever. These are songs that
Yes.
the lyrics are not paragraphs and paragraphs of deep, long, drawn out theological. It's quite simple, but so profound. So, yeah.
One of my favorite old songs is, and
Hmm.
I am a proponent of both wordy songs and repetitive
Yeah.
songs. I think we need
Yeah.
both, and both sung mighty well.
Right.
There's this song, this old hymn, I Know It Was the Blood. Very simple, and it still takes me on this journey of gratitude and the cross. It's, I know it was the
Yeah.
blood, I know it was the blood, I know it was the blood for me. One day when I was lost, he died on the cross. I know it was the blood for me. Then it's, they
Hmm.
pierced him in his side. They pierced him in his side. They
Right.
pierced him in his side for me. And then it's, he got up from the grave. He got up. And
Yes.
each time as we go to a new truth, it's like, oh wait, he did that for me.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
day when I was lost. And then it's, he's coming back again. He's coming back
Yes.
again for me. One day, and it
Yeah.
is just really taking these big truths that anchor our souls and
Yeah.
saying them in really simple ways that just keep getting pressed in deeper as the song goes. And I'm so grateful for songs like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Well, this kind of leans into that thought. If people can't keep up, they can't participate. And that is the key distinctive about congregational worship is maybe it's coming or being led from the stage, but it's got to be about people joining in. Ultimately, that's what we're going after. So,
Yes. And
yes.
I mean, to what we talked about earlier about thinking about what it is that we're doing, I think when we don't think carefully about what God wants the songs to do when we gather together, we can just treat it as whatever sounds good, or just like a little concert before the sermon, or an icebreaker before the real stuff. And I think there's some ways that we can accidentally discourage people from participating. I think the more it feels like a concert people are watching, I think sometimes people kind of sit back and they observe. I think we want to think really carefully, how are we helping people to lean in and participate, from the songs that we choose, from the arrangements of the songs that we choose, to the way that we, set up the songs that we're choosing. We want God's people to be singing. Sometimes it's even the volume.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes sometimes if you can't hear yourself, then you are back in watching mode. And
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's really important that people feel invited to engage.
Yeah. Beautiful. This next one taps into a little kind of vulnerability. Some Sundays aren't powerful, they're honest. And where do you think that the place of honesty is on a Sunday morning? Like, should we just put our best foot forward, or is there room to dig a little deeper and be a little more raw? What do you think about that?
I think when we think we just have to put our best foot forward, I think that's how some Christians can end up feeling lonely and isolated, and feeling like they're
Yeah.
the only ones who are having these rough weeks or having these tough seasons. Um, and I think sometimes we think, well, that's what everything else is for. Small groups can do that. Other things can do that. When God's people come together and we come together around a word that is full of honest, raw vulnerabilities and difficulties, then I think we have to be willing to go there.
Hmm.
And if every Sunday has to be an emotional high, then there are a lot of other kinds of experiences meeting with God that we're gonna miss out on, and we
Yeah,
don't want to rob people of those opportunities to really meet God where they are, and for God to meet with
for
us in those
sure.
moments.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Trip, you're just like you're tapping into so many heartfelt truths of what it is to both lead worship and to engage in it as a church. And I know so many people are coming on Sundays to church and they're just like longing for this. They're like, I am tired of just the show. I want a song I can sink my heart into. So that's so good.
absolutely.
Okay,
And I
here's
think
an.
as our oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Well, I was
No.
just gonna say, as our culture, leans more and more and more into like little quick bits of entertainment, and we are
Yes.
more lonely, separated from each other. It is, I think, is an opportunity for the church to even lean more into what is unique about what happens when we gather together. God meets with us, and we get to meet with Him together.
Yeah.
Honest, raw, transparent ways that we don't get everywhere else in our
Yes.
lives.
Yes. So good.
Yeah.
I think this quote might have been you reflecting on your new collection of songs that you brought. That you're saying these songs aren't for stages, they're for rooms. What do you think when you think of like a stage versus a room? What's in your mind, in your heart for that?
Um, I think one of the, you know, I think when we think stages, I think we think more performance for other people to watch and to enjoy. And I think
Yeah.
I'm primarily thinking of these songs as something for us to engage in together. There is in Exodus 15, when they get across the Red Sea, Pharaoh's behind them. Pharaoh's chasing them. God splits the Red Sea. They walk through. God makes a little street in the middle of the sea that they walk through. And when they get to the other side, and then the sea crashes in on Pharaoh and his army, they get to the other side. They don't just say, "Hey, isn't God good?" They don't like send it to the group text. They sing. They sing these beautiful poetic
Yes.
words. God is a man of war. The horse and his rider thrown into the sea. They sing. There's something really unique about singing the beauty of God's truth that kind of shows how beautiful and powerful that He is. And that's what I want this music to be. Not just you listening to me, but oh, there's a way that we can all, with one voice in a united way, acknowledge the clearest truth
Yeah.
in all the universe. God is incredible. And we get to do it
Yes.
together.
I
Yeah.
love I love the idea of a room. In fact, sometimes I refer to our sanctuary as kind of like a living room. That's what it feels like. Like, welcome
Mhm.
to my living room. Let's get around the fire. Here's a
Yeah.
piano. And we're just going to hear each other's voices. That's the kind of ambiance that we're trying to set up. Even if you're on a stage, it's what can you
Yes.
do to make it feel like that. And I've been led myself in experiences like that. I can remember being led by Bill Gaither, of all people, sitting at a piano in front of 2,000 people. And seriously, I felt like I was in his living room. And I was so impacted. I thought, when I'm on stage, I want to give people that impression that they're just right here together with me, sitting around the piano, and we're just singing. So I love that.
Amen.
That sense. So good.
Amen.
Okay, well, just a couple more. You're doing great with my little firing squad here. So it's good conversation. You have great thoughts. This one says, if a song can't be carried by the church, it doesn't matter how well it's performed. So so that just speaks to what we're trying to do as we're writing songs and thinking, oh, this is going to sound so great. Look at the hook. Look at the groove. The band's going to rock, but it's got to be carried by ultimately the church. Yeah.
That's right. Because if the goal is just for beautiful sound to be made, then sure, it doesn't matter if the church is really able to join in or not. But if the goal is we are singing, making melody to the Lord with our heart and singing to one another with that truth, then it has to be something that the church can sing to. And I think, I was at a church once where I think this can look different in different contexts. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I was at a church. He said, "Oh, we don't do drums very much because we think it would actually take away from people being able to sing along." And I said, "Well, I think the context I'm about to go to, if there were no drums, it would take away from people's ability
Yes.
to sing along." But whatever context we're in, we're trying to think about, okay, how can I write this song in a way? How can we lead this song in a way where everybody feels called in to join in? So whether that's drum, whether that's harmonies, whether that's the simplicity, whether that's the arrangement, we are not just performing the song as we want to do it. We're thinking about the people in front of us, these particular people that the Lord has given us to lead. How do we help them to obey God this morning? How do we help them to trust God more this morning and encourage one another in that this morning?
So good. So good. Okay, one more. Brace yourself. Worship is how the church remembers what's true together. We've probably said this over and over, even in just all the last questions, but give me some final thoughts for this.
Yeah. I am thinking of, if I can remember what psalm this is quickly. If not, then I will do my best to point out the truth of it. There is so often in the Psalms, there'll be sometimes where they'll give a little bit of a history lesson of what's happened amongst God's people, of the ways that God has delivered them, of the ways that God has met with them, even of the ways that some of their ancestors turned away from him. And sometimes as they're giving these little history lessons, there will be a point where they're like, and they weren't faithful because they forgot about what the Lord had done. They forgot about how faithful he'd been. They forgot about him putting his word in front of them. And remembering I think sometimes we think the way we grow is by learning new things about God. I think often what we see in the scriptures, there's one part in First Peter where Peter says, "I want to stir you up by way of reminder." Not by telling you something you've never heard before. I want to remind you of the truth of God that you've already heard. And sometimes that's hard to do on our own. We're very forgetful. I had a friend who said Christians are leaky. We leak. We forget what the Lord has done. We forget good truth about him. And God is so kind that he built in a memorable, beautiful way for us to keep reminding each other. So it's kind of like a collective memory, a communal memory of how good God has been. Even in the way that we parent our kids, in the way that we lead others, in the way that we keep following God, finding ways to remind ourselves of God's truth is a beautiful thing. And singing is, I think, the most powerful way that God has given us that together. Yeah.
Well, Trip, I would like to welcome you to the world of worship music. I hope this is the first of many albums to come, but this For Your Glory, I mean, we're going to have it on Praise Charts. Make sure we get the music. We'll clear the copyrights, do all the publishing, all that kind of stuff. Get the charts. Encourage you, if you're listening and looking for some music that evokes these heartfelt themes from Trip, and certainly like that song Fortress that we heard, Naomi Rain, Jonathan Traylor. There's a number of notable artists who are joining together with you. I think it's going to be great. Releases mid-February. Is there an exact date that we know this goes live?
February 13th.
February 13th. Okay, the day before the big date with your wife, this album goes live. There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for a great conversation. So many topics we covered. I hope you feel encouraged as a worship leader, worship pastor, or You know, if you're on the team, in the choir, in the orchestra, wherever you are, share this with your worship pastor. Hopefully that's an encouragement to them. And February 13th, go get the CD. No, you're probably not going to do that. Just go on your phone, Spotify, Apple Music, or 200 other platforms. It'll be there. Stream it, listen to it, come to Praise Charts. We'll put the link to where you can get the charts. And let's do this. Trip, thank you very much. That was great.
Thank you so
There we
much.
go. All right.